Life for a man is harder than life for a woman.
Dudes that got money don't care. They'd rather get a younger, hotter girl that's gonna be quiet and not be a pain in the ass.
If you're the kind of person who feels like they need therapy, you're useless.
You could be the strongest dude in the world, but the second that you show that you're able to be led by your emotions and not stand in rational truth and strength is the exact second that the woman does no longer want you.
The bad boy is his own man. He's on his own path, his own journey, and he doesn't give a shit what's going on beside of him.
The majority of men have no money, no power, no sex from their wife.
Facts.
What a load of bullshit. I'm excited.
She said.
Today we're diving into a crisis that's quietly affecting millions of men.
Oh, fuck.
What is it?
The male loneliness epidemic.
The male loneliness epidemic. Despite what certain internet personalities might tell you, this isn't about women, money, or status.
Women.
It's about deeper, more systemic issues.
Dang.
Hell yeah. You want to talk about some stats?
Shit. Let's go. According to a 2021 study by the Survey Center on American Life, 15% of men report having no close friends, up 3% in 1990.
All right. Up 3% since 1990. But
Yeah.
15% is still incredibly small, right? That's like what? That's 15 men out of every 100. Quick question. Would you say you have any close friends?
No.
No. What would you define as a close friend?
Close friend, someone you can trust with your deepest, darkest secrets, but also someone you can hit up at any point in time and say, hey, let's go play some tennis. And they're like, okay, let's go play tennis.
Huh.
That's what I think of when I think of a best friend.
But, well, not best friend, close friend.
Oh, close friend.
I mean, I'm sure they're the same thing.
Essentially.
Okay. All right. I would say the same. I mean,
Yeah, how would you define it?
well, yeah, I would say a close friend for me as a guy, I would say a close friend to me is any male. Well, I mean, we're talking about men here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I have women friends, but
Mm.
what we're talking about is male friends. So, close friends to me would be boyfriends, yeah. Would be a guy that I can talk to about, problems, about issues.
Like personal stuff?
Personal stuff.
Oh,
There you go.
shit.
A guy that I can talk to about personal stuff. I don't feel pressure to perform. I don't feel pressure to be a certain way around this person. If I'm having a bad day, like I'm having a bad day, you know what I mean? We can
Right.
talk about what's going on in our lives without
Mm.
this fear of being made
Ridiculed.
fun of or ridiculed. Yeah.
So would you say that you can talk to them about like intimate stuff?
What do you define as intimate?
Like your feelings?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. What's crazy is that that same study, the 2021 study by Survey Center on American Life, found that 30% of men report having one or two close friends,
Oh shit.
compared to 50% of men in 1990.
Mm.
So we dropped 20% in terms of the amount of guys who have one or two close friends. And if we want something more recent, there was a study done 2 years ago from the UK that shows that men are twice as likely as women to report feelings of loneliness, but less likely to seek help for it. Have you ever felt lonely yourself?
Yeah.
How would you define loneliness?
It's a reality shattering experience.
Mm.
You're like on an island with nothing around you, So your every like thought is amplified, and then you'll have like a negative thought come to you, and you have no way of like deciphering it or navigating through it, and then you get more of them, and then more of them, and they stay with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes they lead you to making decisions you wouldn't have made otherwise.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Would you say that you feel lonely often, or do you think you feel more stable now in this point of your life?
More stable now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Besides close friends, would you say you have like a roster of friends?
Roster. Yeah.
Are these men and women or
Yeah, both.
both? Would you say I have more guy friends or, more queer friends or more?
It's probably split right down the middle.
Really?
Between like men, women?
Yeah.
Probably right down the middle. Yeah. And then I've always known queer people.
Yeah.
I don't know what ratio they would make up. But yeah, it's probably split right down the middle. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
how would you ratio your friends?
I would say besides you, I probably have like 2 guy friends that I talk to.
Hmm.
And you're like the only guy friend that I see the most.
Yeah.
Like the most.
Oh shit.
Most of my friends are women or queer.
Women. Okay.
Women. Most of my friends are women or queer, just straight up, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I mean, I talk to men online. Like there are men who I guess we're either mutuals or they just, they talk to me regularly online, but I wouldn't consider that like a friendship. I'm talking about like IRL friends. So IRL friends, I have, it'd be like maybe 3 guys. And, the rest are just like coworkers.
How many women friends would you say you have?
How many women friends would I say I have? You know what? IRL, I don't have very many like women friends that I see often. It's more like by proxy, but we've had more meaningful conversations online.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
you know what I mean? Because a lot of my friends are kind of long distance,
Yeah.
so I don't get to see them too often.
Right.
But the ones who are women or queer or whatever, but the ones who are women, I've definitely had like way more meaningful conversations with them.
Compared to your your male counterparts.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, why do you think that is?
Well, women are just more. I feel like women are more safe to talk about those things, and they're not as judgmental.
But these are your friends, though.
These are my friends, and conversations just come up that way. Like, I feel like that's kind of what our relationship was built off of. Is a lot of like that type of conversation, more intimate, if you will, types of conversations.
Right.
But again, if I'm thinking about just friends in general, I don't really have a lot of friends.
Why not?
But you got to be careful with that word friend, because even me saying that, I bet a lot of people online would be like, whoa, I thought we were friends. Because there are people that I've gotten to know online. You know what I mean? And I would consider them my friend, but we've never met.
Right, yeah.
But we know each other pretty well. So yeah, if you want to talk about online friends, I've got quite a lot of people that I've gotten to know over the years.
Is there a term for that? For like an online bestie?
An official term?
Yeah, they're probably.
I don't know.
Because it's funny to think about, because it used to be like you had an acquaintance from like school or something, and then like your coworker could also fit under acquaintance, right?
Yeah.
And then right above that, it's like people you're friendly with. So a step above, you can kind of talk about things in your life, but not often or not like too in depth.
Yeah.
Now it's possible to have like a full-on bestie, but you've never like met them, or maybe met them once and you've known them for like 2, 3, 4 years, like our parents. I don't think they can relate to that.
That's a great thing to consider.
Yeah.
Is like,
so like how are we defining friends now?
Yeah. How many years? Do you think it's about the years you've been friends, or what you talk about, like the experiences you have?
The latter, the what you talk about, and I mean also too, like I guess the frequency in which you speak to a degree. But I think it's who you're comfortable like talking to the most. Because your coworkers will see you more than your online bestie, but they're barely even your friend. You know what I mean?
For the most part. I mean, I've definitely made some connections with some of my coworkers.
Yeah.
So we got some voicemails. I posted a story a couple of weeks ago asking for people to submit their thoughts on the male loneliness epidemic. So let's take a listen to them, yeah?
Yeah.
I think if men tend to view loneliness with a different perspective, it would help ease a lot of the anger and sadness and burden that they tend to feel. Being alone isn't a bad thing, but when loneliness can consume you, it can start making people have bad thoughts, bad intentions if left unchecked. And it is terrible that so many young men and men in general feel so lonely and isolated. But it also circles back to the bubble that a lot of men have started trapping themselves in with like the red pill movement, with the uprise in so many alt-right groups and alt-right ideology. It isolates you. And I think a step that men can start taking, small ones, is consuming different forms of media. Start trying to change your perspective, adopting hobbies that will help you grow as a person, help you look internally, not just traditional hobbies, but finding something that can help you feel accomplished. Whenever you start doing things like that, it helps chip away at insecurity and addressing inherent insecurity little by little, and just having an open mind to therapy, having an open mind in general opens the door to let in others and develop friendships.
Damn. There was a lot said there.
Yeah.
First, shout out to Ren really quick for submitting that. There's a lot there, and a lot that I agree with.
She actually touched on a lot that me and you talked about recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her take.
Well, tell me about it. What do you like about it?
Well, we jokingly said that these people tend to not have personalities. And she took a very like holistic approach to addressing that. She said have hobbies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Find things that, I think what she's probably trying to get at was like find things that you're passionate about, and in turn they fulfill you as a person.
That's literally what I was thinking about as I was hearing that. I was like, when I heard that, I was like, find something that you want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, think about, like, has there ever been anything that piques your interest and then you stop yourself because you're like, no, like someone will make fun of me,
Right,
or
yeah.
It's automatically paired with like a negative feeling, right? I used to feel that way about like gardening or like flowers, like anything like nature-y. I would feel like that was too effeminate.
Right.
You know what I mean? Another thing they said that really stood out to me was there's a difference between being alone and lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being alone and lonely. Two major differences. It's okay to be alone. Like, totally chill to be alone. Totally chill to be in solitude from time to time. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you should spend time with yourself. But they made the distinction between loneliness and lonely, because loneliness isn't just about being alone. And then they went into this. It's loneliness is this ball of, or rather, loneliness is like a bunch of plugs that have been unplugged, right? Like disconnection. It's this feeling of disconnection, misunderstanding. You feel emotionally isolated, even when you're out in public. And it's been building up for decades, as we saw in the statistics. This has been building up for decades.
So along with like having hobbies, you'll feel personally fulfilled, but also you'll meet people that have those same hobbies.
Oh, yeah.
And in turn, you'll have new friends.
Yeah.
So boom.
Dude, that was super good. Let's listen to the next one.
Okay, I think a lot of the male loneliness epidemic is somewhat self-inflicted, because the men that I see talk about it are ones where it's like they're very much brainwashed in a way where it's like women and other supposedly lesser men owe them something. And these people don't want to essentially give them what they feel that they are owed. So they put them down, push them away, and it's essentially like self induced loneliness. They isolate themselves because they have some sort of very strange superiority complex with it. It's it's very odd, and it's also very concerning. Now, there are a lot of other guys out there where it's like it's a mental health struggle being able to, like, meet new people or get out there. I totally understand that. But I feel like the ones that are most vocal about the male loneliness epidemic are the ones that have unfortunately just been brainwashed by the idea that other people owe them. And so as a result, they like hate other men and they hate women. And it's just, it feels very much like they brought it on themselves.
Self-inflicted.
I like their take too.
I love that it wasn't exactly the same as the first one.
Right.
But there was still a lot of really good points in there.
I think she's trying to get at like accountability.
Accountability.
You know what I mean?
Accountability is super important.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like no guy wants to be accountable, especially to another man, because it makes you feel like, oh, like, I fucked up or whatever, and you don't want
Yeah.
to feel lesser than that guy.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're like afraid that they could somehow hold it over you, or there's this false narrative that if you tell your emotions to women that they'll use it against you. And
Mm.
I don't deny that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? I'm sure there are plenty of horrible women out there. There are plenty of horrible people out there that will do shit like that to you.
Mm.
But it's not a gendered issue. It's a human issue.
Yeah, these are pretty universal.
It's universal.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why it's so self-inflicted because there's lots of like root causes in this shit.
Yeah.
I think primarily we think about how men have been portrayed, right? One of the best examples we have to understanding how men have been portrayed throughout the decades and history is media. You know what I mean? Like movies, books.
Yeah. Mass media.
Mass media. And men have always been portrayed as this like stoic, rugged, fearless,
Capable.
handsome but dirty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's the opposite kind of there's the opposite depiction of that, which is scheming, powerful, strong, deadly, a threat, villain, authoritative, and or like an intense laziness or perversion, or just like lust, like a lust to do something intensely, mostly negative. You know what I mean? When we're talking about like the villains here.
Yeah.
I think that has essentially, fed into families all of these years, and we're told by our fathers and they're told by their fathers and so on and so forth that you want to suppress your emotions, that you want to avoid vulnerability, that you want to prioritize independence. Your independence is valuable. It's very American ideology.
No, I agree. I was just thinking that along with this, like, I don't know what to call it, pseudo independence.
Yeah.
You feed into like another insecurity of you don't want to be the guy that needs help, because that in turn like it is like an admission of weakness.
Yeah.
So like if I don't know, your sink's broken, you don't want to be the one to ask like, hey, does anyone know how to do this shit?
Yeah.
Can you do it for me, please? Like, it might seem small, but for a lot of men, it's a lot of like manly points that are being deducted from you.
Because pride,
yeah. And also like you should know how to do these things.
yeah.
Because if other guys find out, they're going to be like, haha, you can't fix your own sink. But if the girls find out, they're going to be like, oh, no, I don't want him. He can't fix a sink. What else can he not do?
Right.
That's what's going on in their mind.
Yeah, that's what's going on in their mind. What would you say? Like, I feel like there are a lot of people online who would say that's not just in their mind, it's their experience. It's like women have been this way to me. Women have mocked me for not knowing how to do this. Women have betrayed me in this sense. I was talking to a guy recently who was engaging with me on some of the posts that I made about the male loneliness epidemic. And he was saying that in his experience, none of the women he knew could be trusted. Like they intentionally hurt him or, mocked him for not fitting that image.
The problem with like anecdotal evidence is that it can be helpful because it personalizes the information you're talking about. But the other problem is that you don't know what that person's like lived experience is. So we don't know how he carries himself in these situations. And like who he's around, how much of this is actually factual. So that being said, you can find ignorance anywhere. If you look for it, you can find it anywhere. So probably you'll find like maybe girls were like mean to him or something, but I think for him to say like every girl he's ever met, I don't know. I'm going to have to question that one.
Yeah, like I said earlier, ignorance or being a shitty person is not a gendered characteristic.
Yeah.
Everybody is capable of being horrible. But yeah, it just makes me think like, where are you, dude? Like, what are you going into? Like, what does your social life look like? What are your interests? Like, where are you hanging out? You know what I mean? Because like you said, not every woman is like this. But there are definitely social circles and types of pop culture that just like are the breeding ground for
Right.
that.
And then also, how are we defining like being mean?
Right.
You know, and we won't know all that until you speak to the person directly. But there's a lot of things that are just like left to question.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing a pattern, and I hope that. Let's listen to the next one.
Okay. Probably should have done this going into this, but I don't really know how any of these people identify. So I'm just going to say they moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, this one's by Soob. I do know who this person is.
Soob.
And, they're actually a member of my collective.
Scoop.
Very intelligent person. So let's see what they have to say.
You.
I think that the male loneliness epidemic is a real issue, but unfortunately, online spaces, I find the most discourse about it when it has to do something with misogyny or some sort of harm towards a group of people. A lot of the examples I see is when there's a successful woman online in any shape or form, whether that success is morally right or wrong to anyone is not up for me to decide, but they will just use that as a way to, to show an example of why males are so lonely because women are somehow successful, and that's what's bringing them down, as well as women in general, regardless if they're successful or not, because they impose their own insecurities onto women. And I think because there is a lot of that online that's, goes viral, I think it kind of disregards the real underlying issue that there is a lot of men out there who are genuinely lonely and who are not misogynistic or maybe have misogynistic tendencies, but, can strive to be better. Yeah. Also, men are just silly, so sometimes it's hard to actually know what's going on, at least from a NB person. But yeah.
Men are just silly.
I like that punchline there.
Not gonna lie, men do be silly.
Do you ever look at silly memes?
I look at silly memes all the freaking time. I love silliness.
It's kind of its own genre of meme. I didn't know that until very recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love silly
They're
memes. Cool. I love being silly. Like, I think there's something to be said about like being a little goofy sometimes. You know what I mean? Just being stupid, but stupid in this like childlike sense.
Yeah.
Anyways,
there's a lot to pack in each one that I feel like hopefully we get to, but I like this one too. So the pattern I was going to bring up earlier, and this kind of confirmed it. So I didn't write it down, but basically what I would have said was the roles like that we play in society, like men, women, they're changing, and a lot of them like aren't exclusive to either party.
Yeah.
And some of them are just kind of like not going away, but they're not as important, I guess.
Yes.
Or they're not as assigned to each. So here's an example. Typically, it's the woman that cooks for everyone, whether it's a family or her spouse or whatever. And now, like, the demand for that is becoming more universal, especially if you're someone who, if you're going to school after high school and then you're probably going to work, you're going to spend more time alone. And as such, you're being forced to know how to do these things. And maybe you grew up in a household where they adhered to those like traditional roles. So you weren't equipped for those things when you're out on your own. And so that's one example where like life is kind of like tearing you down, or it'll feel that way. And also too, like you were set out into the world with those like all those misconceptions. So you combine those two and you have like this perfect storm of like stubbornness, before you even get to like misogyny or anything. You just have like a perfect storm of like stubbornness. Yeah. So you'll have a lot of guys that are like, well, I mean, maybe I should learn how to cook, but I don't know. Like, do I have to be the one that does it?
Dude, yes. It's these systems that we're often blind to. Like we don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
They
there,
they
yeah.
they
There you go.
mentioned where they see it most online is like under successful women, you
Right.
know, under like whenever a
Oh, I was
woman
about to get to that. Yeah.
whenever a woman does something online, you're always going to have like a string of for the most part you're going to have a string of comments in the comment section of men who are saying something negative.
Yeah, they crash out.
They crash out. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, shouldn't you like be somewhere else right now at this time of day?
Yeah. It's good. I'm glad we got the voicemails. We have like someone else's perspective on this.
Yeah.
So the other pattern is that something we already know, that as these roles are changing, men don't know how to like process all this stuff. Like emotional intelligence has become a bigger part of the equation than it was before.
Oh,
So they don't know how to deal with like their own personal role in society, but just themselves directly.
yeah.
They don't know how to navigate those things and process those things.
Yes.
So you combine that with like an insecurity. So an example, like we just said, they see a girl doing well online, and their instinct is just to crash out online in the comment section rather than like figuring that thing out, whatever that thing is.
I've experienced this very reality like in my own life. Like I can think about growing up as a kid and having emotions as from like 7 to 18 being in my house and there were a lot of points where I felt incredibly emotional, like incredibly angry, incredibly scared, incredibly anxious. I can recall many moments like that in my childhood. And when I think about the response from both my parents, two completely drastic responses. Like my mom would be the one to uh, help me reason through my feelings.
Mm.
You know what I mean? She would be the one to actually just confront in some way the things that I was feeling, and while at the same time, my dad would just be, in a sense, dismissing them.
Oh shit.
One thing I could think of is if I was really hurt or if I was crying or whatever, or if he had said something to me that was really hurtful and I started to cry, like he'd be like, he'd be like, go cry somewhere else. Like, don't cry in front of me. Go cry somewhere else.
Right.
Or I'll give you a reason to cry. And so I was thinking about this. I'm like, as I'm growing up, I'm being told these two separate ways that I should be dealing with my feelings, and more often than not, I always just did what my dad told me to do, because that was like the biggest male role model in my life. Ultimately, no matter how much my relationship was lacking growing up, ultimately, I still want to be some form of my dad as I was like a young boy. You know what I mean? Like I had this image in my head, like, okay, I need to work, get a lot of money so that my future partner doesn't have to work, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I had this idea of what success looked like. Like my dad owned his own house at like 23 or 24, something like that. Really young. And there was no other man that I saw more than my own.
But I think you're onto something though. So your mom, so whenever you would go through something, you would go to your mom.
Yeah.
You go to your parents.
Yes.
And then how would your mom usually help you break all that down?
Most of the time, she wasn't even like breaking it down in the sense of going through what I was feeling, but more often than not, just like holding space for me.
To let you get it out.
To let me get it out and then respond in empathy. That's why I always went to my mom. That's why I always talked to my mom. Everything that I dealt with in high school, like, what I was wearing, if it looked good, if it matched, because that was the kind of guy like I was in high school. I cared about what I wore. I was like, I need to wear something that is fashionable, that is good.
Right.
I would always go to my mom. Mom, does this look good? For shaving and shit. Ask my mom. Almost everything that has to do with like figuring out life as a teenager, I went to my mom, because she was going to respond in empathy. She was going to respond not in a way that didn't make me feel stupid. Like I should have known that.
Right.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing she did was just hold space for me and not make me feel bad.
So do you think a lot of these dudes don't have a good relationship with their mom?
No, not that at all. It's not that. It's just that a lot of these dudes, like me, were raised in very classic patriarchal structures.
Right.
You mentioned roles. Roles are changing. Roles
Yeah.
have changed. A lot of people are realizing now, just because I identify in this way or I look like this doesn't mean that I have to act in this way or fulfill this responsibility.
Yeah.
You mentioned like cooking. My mom cooks everything for us. And when I got married, I didn't really expect myself to be cooking at all.
Right. But it's probably not something you even like thought through.
I didn't think, it's
Yeah.
not that I made the conscious decision to be like, okay, you cook, I don't.
Yeah.
Because I did cook some, you know what I mean? But a lot of the way we ate meals, it was definitely like just defaulted to her. You know what I'm saying? It was nothing we thought about. It was just like, oh, these are the roles we fall into. And if I was asked to do something like that, it was like, like a burden. Like, like, what do you mean? Like, bro, if you want it done right, like, you might as well just make dinner yourself because I only know how to make like 4 dishes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Pasta, chilaquiles,
Yeah. Yeah.
chorizo and eggs.
Let's go, doggy. One more.
And then I taught myself how to make like chili with like
like chili and cheese chili?
like no, just like chili, like ground beef,
Yeah.
peppers,
Like chili dogs chili.
Yeah. And I made it with like this beer as like a stock. Oh, it was
Oh,
delicious.
That does sound good.
But that was like the extent of my
Yeah.
of my knowledge. There were other things that I would make because like I was like I wanted to do it.
Right.
You know, there was a period where I was watching YouTube and I was watching these really cool guys make food, and I was like, damn, that shit looks good. So I was like, I want to make that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are we the first generation where we grew up with only one parent, or it's common to have only one parent in the household? So I don't think that was our parents, right? Probably us.
Well, my dad grew up with only one parent in the household. I think it probably started in like the 80s. Well, you know what? It also matters on where you live.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you live in poor communities, that's going to be more likely, like you have a higher rate of experiencing that.
Yeah. Ronald Reagan sought to do that.
Yeah. So I would say like when was Reagan president? In the 80s, right?
80s, yeah.
I would say that was like when the decline of both parents being present started to happen. But yeah, we definitely grew up in an era of single family households, for sure. Like all of us knew somebody who had only one parent. Yeah. It was not uncommon.
Because I'm just thinking out loud, like if they grew up with one parent, usually it's the mom. They understand the role of like what men are supposed to do, but because they don't have a reference point for that, there's only so much I think their mom can do for them. But also their mom like wouldn't know. I don't have kids, but I'm assuming like the mom wouldn't know how to like address all those things all at once.
Right.
So, but also too, it's like if you're the boy, you're not gonna put too much into like what your mom is saying to you anyway, no matter how like rational.
Right.
You're gonna be like, well, like you're just my mom. Like you're not my dad, or you're not like the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the person to be listening to.
Especially again, how are you understanding what it means to be a man if you're living in a single parent household, right? I'm not saying that the only way you can be a good man is to have a dad. You know what I mean? Because it's basically it comes down to being a human being.
Yeah.
Like an empathetic human being.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. So you don't need a man to tell you that. But oftentimes, because we grew up in a culture that stressed, this is what family looks like.
Mm-hmm.
This is what a healthy family looks like. And this is what the ideal family should be. I could imagine that a lot of young men growing up who only have their mom, they're going to have a definition of what a man is somehow. And we touched on this earlier. Media. what you consume. You know what I mean? Video games you play, who you watch on YouTube. There's a reason why there's a reason why probably all of the most popular YouTubers, maybe like 80%, I don't know, like are these men who they're not necessarily repeating, you know what I mean, like certain rhetoric.
What do you mean?
Like, I think of people like Jake Paul or
Fuck Jake Paul.
Logan Paul.
Fuck Logan Paul. Too.
Influencers, especially, post our era. Like, we grew up with like Jackass, MTV, Fuse, depending on what kind of guy you were. If you liked rap or rock and roll, BET, like different, all sorts of different. You could find a niche as we were growing up. So millennials were definitely getting their idea of masculinity, one, from the older men in their life, but if they didn't have a lot of older men in their life, then TV.
Right.
And how men are portrayed in media. And then as you have the dawn of, the smartphone and social media, you then have the rise of an influencer. And you don't see a lot of guys who are not assholes, who are influencers. That's not to say they don't exist. Like I definitely subscribe and watch quite a few YouTubers who are men, and they're very, very just a good person. You know what I mean?
As of late, there's been this joke online where the joke was like, where's the left version of like Joe Rogan?
Ooh.
Where's the left version of like all those incel guys? Like, where's the left version of that? Like, go make those podcasts,
Right.
And technically, all that stuff has existed for a while. And I don't know. I don't think you can find the numbers. Maybe you can, but there is a good amount of it that exists. One problem is that the algorithm doesn't promote that stuff. So now that we live in a very like algorithmic world, and we live most of our lives online, your reality is shaped by what you see on there, and your reality is obviously not reality, but it's a reality that's kind of, to a degree, like of your own making, but a lot of it's given to you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of always been a thing, but yeah. So a lot of that stuff isn't promoted. I'm sure there's reasons why, but right-leaning, this is where it's appropriate. I hate the word content, but it's appropriate here. Right-leaning content gets promoted more than anything else does. So that's part of how you had that first wave of like Alex Jones, I think, fits in that category technically.
Yeah.
And then I don't know who's first after that, but eventually you get like
you have like
Jordan Peterson.
I was just gonna say that. Ben Shapiro.
From there, the space, you'll see it. The space like filled up pretty quickly.
Yes.
Not just because like there are more incels, but the system is set up. It cultivates them and promotes them. So this is part of the reason why TikTok was like groundbreaking in ways that it kind of equalized the way engagement influences the way things circulate online. If something is popular, it'll promote it to more people, regardless of whatever your preferences are. So even if you're not tuned into whatever this meme is, if the meme is big enough, it'll be sent to you, even if you don't typically like those memes. So in turn, you were able to find a voice. So if you were not right-leaning content influencer, whatever the fuck, you could still have a voice on there. So YouTube and like Instagram still adheres to the more fucked up algorithm. So that's one reason why you're seemingly seeing less of that.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's funny to say like, yeah, you need the opposite of that, fight fire with fire. But that's one problem, that no matter how many content creators you have, if you don't fix that algorithm, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
I think this is where it'll always like bounce back and forth between the media they consume, but just the stuff that's around them. So kind of going back to what we said earlier, if they didn't have like a father in their life, these people turn to TV shows, movies, their phone, but also the men around them. And you can see it more in like high school, where look at the group. Next time you're out at lunch, look at the groups. And if you see like a predominantly like male group, you'll have like one, maybe two leaders, and the rest kind of like almost like are like in awe of their presence. I'm avoiding the word follower because that gets used so much. Like, don't be part of the sheep, don't be a follower, that kind of thing that you see online all the time. But you do see that mentality where like one of them will stand out and the rest kind of just like are almost like yes men in a way. And the person who's in that like dominant position, they won't always know it, but they're in that position. If they're shitty, those people that don't have any other examples will aspire to be like them, because in their mind, like, that's it right there. That's cool to me. And as it is, you're very like malleable when you're at that younger age. So the people you respect the most have always been like your peers more than your parents. So that right there is a problem unto itself.
You know, we have to understand, and this is why I keep stressing that this is a cultural issue. It's a generational issue. It's how the majority of men have grown up. You have to understand
That it's complicated.
that it's complicated, but also at the same time, not really. If you understand kind of
Yeah.
like the root of it all. Like, what is the root of it all? And to me, I hate to use this word because it's you know it's a buzzword. It's so popular, but it is what it is. There's no other way around it. It's a patriarchy. Patriarchy.
Yeah.
And because of this patriarchy, like you have to understand, the patriarchy is, some people are gonna cringe at this connection, but
Say it.
the patriarchy is imperialistic. It's capitalistic.
True.
Okay, it benefits a certain group of people,
Mm.
and these people perpetuate these systems. So the patriarchy is capitalistic. The patriarchy is consumeristic. The patriarchy, is imperialistic. And nobody wins under the patriarchy except those with power. Because we are all well aware that there are men out there, like you mentioned, look at like if you go to high school or if you're in high school at lunch, look at the friend groups, right? And like you said, there's always going to be 1 to 2 like dominant leaders in that male friend group, and the rest kind of just like in awe. Like they'll back them up, or they're just lucky to be there by association because that was how they were raised. That was what they were raised in. There is no other option.
Or that was the void in their life.
Or that was the void in your life.
Yeah. So since they didn't have like that father in their life, that is now their father.
Yeah.
So that's why like everything that guy says is like hilarious no matter how like dumb it is. And that same guy can be like, "Oh, go do this," and then they go do it. They don't question it because like I don't want to make him mad at me, because that's the surrogate. There you go. That's the word. That's now their surrogate father in a sense.
Even though we wouldn't admit that, but these are just the systems that we're used to. So to us, it's not a system. It's just life. That's what people would say. It's just life. It is what it is. I do think though that there is a lot to be hopeful for. Hey, Curbs here. Thanks for listening to part 1 of our male loneliness epidemic series. Special shout out to everybody who called in for this episode. We had a great time listening and responding to those voicemails. Stick around for next week as we talk about the solutions and what we do next. Like, what's next? How do we solve this epidemic? As always, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.